Hey, 4th and 5th graders. So it is coming up for time for you to pick what you would like to do next year in music. There are a couple of options that you can go with, 3 to be precise. So there is band, which is woodwinds and brass wind instruments. There is strings, which is string instruments, very specifically violin, viola, and cello. Occasionally you'll get to do bass, but not very often because the bass are so big. And then your third option is kind of up in the air right now. I'm not entirely certain what it's going to be at your school, but we will kind of come to that as it becomes more available. But it will be some form of art, either a visual arts or an exploratory art. So I want to show you the options today for your band options. So a woodwind option and a string option. When you do choose band, you have to pick between either trumpet, trombone, which are your 2 brass options, or flute and clarinet, which are your 2 woodwind options. Those are the ones that we can provide for you. Other woodwind options include oboe and saxophone. We will not be able to provide saxophones for you, but we can provide the clarinets or the flutes. So if you're really interested in saxophone or you're really interested in oboe, you should start with clarinet or with flute. So I'm going to talk to you about the different instruments really quick. I'm going to begin with woodwind. You guys should actually recognize most of this. We have talked about this before back in 2nd grade and again in 3rd grade. And then for those of you who are in 5th grade, again in 4th grade. But woodwind instruments, as you should know, are instruments that either are made out of or used to be made out of wood or have a piece of wood on them. This is a flute, of course, and as everybody knows, this is my 2 instrument. This is the instrument I cannot play. It's the one that I keep working on learning to play, but I just can't quite do it. So one thing about all woodwind instruments is that they all use keys. So keys are these triggered buttons here. As I push down on them, they cause lots of keys to move in different spots. You can see there I'm moving 2 keys at a time. And then different combinations of fingerings will push down different versions of this. If you really liked recorder and really liked learning to play recorder, a woodwind would be a good instrument for you because it's a very similar process. In fact, the fingering for flute is exactly the same as the fingering for a recorder. If you heard some yelling, that's my kids arguing in the background. The fun of doing this at home. So, getting my fingerings down, I use, of course, my left hand on top, my right hand on bottom, regardless of if you don't like it that way. And when I play a flute, it's called transverse wind instrument, which means I'm blowing across the top here. So the head joint of the flute is where the hole is. You can see it there. On a clarinet, this has a piece of wood on it on the back called a reed. I don't have a clarinet with me, so I can't show you. But I can make sounds just by blowing across this. And that's how I create my sound as I blow across the hole, like blowing across a bottle, but not the same. So I'm going to set up and I'm going to attempt to play for you 1 note. Let's see if I can get a note today. See? My 2 instrument. I still can't quite get a note. Some days I do, some days I don't. So that's woodwind instruments. Woodwind instruments have a lot of fingers, but they actually, once you figure out the patterning on them, they're not too difficult. It takes some practicing to get them down. Clarinet is a little harder than flute to get started with because at some point you have to do something called crossing the break, where you have to go from fingers open to all fingers down extremely rapidly and including an extra finger on the back. But flute has its own challenges on getting high and getting low and keeping your notes in tune. So it's just kind of what you want to do in that case. All these instruments are equally as fun and equally as challenging. It's just really what you want to play. Brass instruments, such as the trumpet or the trombone. Trombone has the slide on it, of course. We also talked about the French horn, which is the circular one that points the wrong direction. And the big tuba. You won't have tubas or French horns as an option right now. But with a brass instrument, they all have, of course, mouthpieces. And a mouthpiece, you can see the hole right there with a tiny little hole at the other end of it. When I blow in, I get a sound. You guys all remember the duck sound. I can play songs on just my mouthpiece. Like that. And then the actual instrument is literally just a tube. It's a tube that gets a little bit bigger as it goes all the way around, coming out of the bell at the end. And then with a modern brass instrument, we have valves which are these things here. As I push them down, it changes the direction of the air. So if I push down valve number 1, my air goes out this pipe here, which makes my instrument just a little bit longer. The thing about brass instruments is they are extremely difficult to get going, but once you figure them out, once you figure out what to do here, they're a lot of fun to play and you can learn them pretty rapidly. So, for instance, with a trumpet, I can play my lowest open note, or my lowest C, which is just no valve. Then I can play my D, which is 1 and 3, leaving my middle one open. E. Then my middle valve is sticking right now. F is just 1 finger. So I played at this point C, D, E, F. That's 4 notes. Now I get to G, and guess what G is? Open again. Which means low, C, and middle G are all open. Now you can go higher than that. All over the place. And so you have to have a lot of control here. For a lot of people, that gets really frustrating to start with because it's a lot of tiny little changes in air pressure, not a lot of actual changes in the muscles around your lips because you can't do a ton with the muscles around your lips. So that is your band instruments. I'll have one for string instruments a little bit later up, but that is one of your options for next year.